Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Tony.
And, one of the things that we love about living in a small town is we have people here who are so skilled and so intelligent and just have great, great personalities, great character as well, small town values. And our guest today is no exception to that. We have with us somebody who you may be familiar with if you're on YouTube. His channel, Mr. Pete 222, or his moniker, Tubal Cain. We have Lyle Peterson with us today.
I'll tell you what, this was a hoot. I enjoyed it a lot. What I enjoy the most is hearing his heart behind his YouTube channel and really his life.
Yes.
His life in education and the industrial arts. I know that through this conversation, you're going to hear his heart behind that as well. And I'm looking forward to you guys hearing this one. We love all of them, but this one was pretty special. Absolutely. We enjoy this one a lot. So enjoy this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. We're here today with your YouTube shop teacher. We're so excited to have Mr. Pete with us today. Tubal Cain, we were just talking about the origins of that and also, but Mr. Pete 222 is the channel on YouTube. Also a fellow Streator resident, a longtime Streator resident, former educator, retired educator.
Not former.
No, retired, yeah, but still educating on YouTube, of course. So we just want to tell you a little bit about Lyle Peterson, and he is a YouTuber, of course, with over 1,500 videos. I think is it actually over 1,600? I think maybe
in that area.
So
I'm
in
not
that
keeping
area,
count anymore.
And going all the way back, you're an OG YouTuber. You go back to 2009, I think, or
2006.
2006.
I was in on the
channel.
ground floor.
Yeah,
I think the other day you still have the original first video on your channel, right?
Yeah, with the little.
I do,
engine.
and I'm ashamed of it.
Well, that's all right. I went and looked at it. I watched it the other
did
day.
you?
Yeah.
I did, because I was like, how far back does this go?
Yeah.
And it went back to 2006, and I watched it. And you know what I thought? I thought, you know what? That ain't too bad for 2006.
For 2006 YouTube, when no one knew what YouTube was.
With a $10 camera.
There you go.
We've got his is it silver? Is that silver play button?
That's the silver one.
Okay,
yeah.
so a silver play button for 100,000 subscribers, but you're actually up to 300,000 subscribers, over 300,000 subscribers from all over the world. 88 million views on your channel, over 88 million views on your channel. And so it is an honor to have you here with us. We've been really excited about having you since we first started talking a few weeks back. So so we want to hear your story. We want to hear a little bit about you, your connection with Streator, education, your work coming up over the years. And then we'll talk a lot about YouTube today as well. So tell us, let's start there. Let's start with your story. Tell us a little bit about growing up. You're not from Streator originally.
I'm
you grew up
from
in the area.
west end of Peru.
Okay.
25 miles from here, and
Yep.
I lived there until I got married.
Yep.
In the old homestead, except for when I was in college, of course. And I had wonderful parents. My mother was a tremendous Christian, a prayer warrior. That's the only reason I'm still alive.
Amazing.
Through all of our adventures. You might want to ask me about some of those when
Yeah.
we were kids. But without her, I wouldn't be alive. But my parents were very lenient. We were free range boys. We could do anything we want. I think Mom and Dad were clueless. Mom had no brothers, so she didn't really get it.
Yeah.
And she was busy listening to Moody Bible Institute.
Yeah.
Or Moody Radio, I should say. And Dad was working most of the time, but he grew up on a rural farm in Wisconsin, and the youngest of 12 kids.
Oh, wow.
And, so.
Yeah.
He probably didn't get much parenting, and they were wonderful parents, but we could do anything we wanted.
Had a lot of freedom. Yeah, it was like go out in the morning and come back before around dark, right?
Right.
When we were hungry.
Yep.
There weren't any street lights out there, so I'm sure. So, but yeah, I'd say before the street lights, when the street lights come on, but there probably weren't any.
And my father was a shop teacher at LP High School.
Yeah.
And I had him in machine shop, and of course he was my inspiration and
Yeah.
so on, because we had a shop in the basement. Dad had a shop in the basement, nothing like what I have, but mainly a wood shop. But we were free to use all those, use and ruin
Yeah.
all of those tools, which he wasn't too happy with. But I think he understood the importance of having something for the kids to do. You know, that was before television
Yeah.
and all of that.
Well, and
so.
learning to work with your hands and
Yeah.
you know and learning a trade and
Absolutely,
You
so.
you had mentioned your brother is a big influence in your life too.
Yes.
So was your brother involved in industrial arts too, or just
Yeah,
kind of?
Jan 18 months older than me, and he was a teacher also,
Yeah.
but he was, you know, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Thomas
not
Edison.
not
Heard
personally.
of him. Yeah.
Yeah. My brother was an Elon Musk.
Oh wow.
Much, much smarter than me, probably bordering on genius, but when you're a genius like Elon Musk, he has talked about how troubling it is to be that smart.
Yeah.
There's no peace. The wheels never stop turning. My dad talked about that too. The wheels won't stop turning.
Always
You can't
thinking
sleep
about something.
and all of that. So that's the way my brother was, and he was. He got injured a lot from the things that he did. But we had a wonderful growing up, and Jan died about 3 or 4 years ago, and he, like I say, he was a genius. So he was making guns when we were maybe about 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Actually, making
Like
guns
working
that worked.
firearms.
Yeah.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, am I getting ahead of myself? But
No, you're fine.
when we were senior, I was a junior, Jan was a senior, and there was an industrial arts awards contest at Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, and I submitted a little steam engine that I made in my dad's class, and I got an honorable mention on that.
Yeah.
You know, it probably wasn't that great. That's in some of my videos. But Jan made a Colt Navy revolver. Just beautiful. He made it in school. Imagine this now, making
No,
this
this
in
is a
school.
different time.
Yeah, you're not going to do that
Different times.
nowadays.
And it fired black powder, you know, shot balls and all
Yeah.
of that. It was 1851 model. But that was sent to Dearborn, and it was stolen.
Oh my.
Probably an inside job because there was security there.
Yeah.
It was stolen. He was heartbroken. He never did get over it.
Wow.
Wow.
And there was an insurance settlement. I don't know how much, you know, a few $100 probably. But at that point, he probably never finished another gun to that degree of perfection because it really was beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Kind of poured his heart and soul.
so that's the
into
kind
it,
of things
yeah.
we were doing, you know, when
Yeah.
we were young.
Well, you mentioned river adventures, and was that was when you were a kid, kind of, you know, going on little adventures and things like. What's
Yeah.
your favorite? You know, what was your favorite adventure as a
I'll
kid?
try
that
to
you
make
remember?
this brief, but we had 3 river adventures. One, I think we were only 11 or 12 years old, and my brother and one other friend, Dwight, and I guess I can say this, but we went to a contractor's yard there in the neighborhood. He was a masonry contractor, and we stole.
Oh my.
Probably a little bit bigger than this table. It was a mortar tub, you know, to mix mortar by hand.
Yeah.
So we went in there with a wagon and just took that thing, took it home. Well, it had rust holes in it. So we patched that up with tar and all of that. Took it down to the Illinois River, which was about a mile away, on a wagon.
Oh wow.
We launched it in the little cesspool there. This was in 1953. And you can imagine what was floating in the water. So I was the first one to get into this little tub. And I learned a couple lessons here. Number one, don't take this into the river, because we were about 50 feet from the river, because it was totally out of control. And I also learned that you need a keel on a boat. Otherwise, you're going in circles.
Yeah.
But anyway, I made it back to shore, I think. Then I don't know what happened to that thing. But then in 1965, you know, we read all of these books, Robinson Crusoe,
Yeah.
and Dad read Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Kon-Tiki, all of those. So I got this urge to build a raft. So I took 8, I took 8 oil barrels, and I had timbers and wood, all used stuff, and I built a raft, and everybody laughed at me, and nobody would help me. And finally, when it was finished, They wanted in on
Everybody
the
wanted
action,
a part of it, yeah.
So this was all disassembled and taken down to the river and put back together, and 4 of us went as far as you could go in 4 days, floating. And so that whetted our appetite for, that was an adventure in itself, but I don't want to talk too much about that. But then a year later, we bought a 23-foot boat, patched that up, and we were going to Florida.
Oh, wow.
But we only got as far as, we were going to the Bahamas. We only got as far as Florida before we ran out of money and time, and it broke down so many times. And so, that was probably the adventure of the lifetime.
Well, I'm impressed.
And that's going to be a video
incredible.
someday, but I found the old slides, but they're all faded.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'll do that or not.
What an
but-
amazing growing up. I mean, just being able to grow up and, the world is your oyster, right? Just be able to go out and embrace it. And
We had a
an
big sense of
imagination.
adventure, and I
Yeah.
can still see my mother at the bottom of Brewery Hill in Peru. And one of my friends, my dad had died just before that, a couple of months before that. And my mother and a preacher was there and prayed for us. And my mom was praying and weeping uncontrollably because she thought she would never see us again. And she darn near never did.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
How old were you then?
22. I mean, we weren't
You weren't
We weren't
kids.
real young, but we were pretty immature.
As many 22-year-olds
Yes. Yeah,
would
most all.
probably admit when they're yeah. Oh, that's incredible. So you left LaSalle, Peru area for got married, went to college after that, correct? Am I getting that the right order?
No,
or-
I didn't get married till after a year of
Okay.
teaching here.
So where'd you go to school at?
Illinois State.
Okay. For education, right?
Yeah, I have 2 degrees in education.
Okay. Came back to Streator High School.
Well, I got hired at Streator. My brother got hired at LP, my dad's old job.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
And so the first 5 years, I still lived in Peru and commuted, and then finally realized, well, this was it.
Yeah.
And bought a house here in Streator.
And you said earlier that you had one job, one house, and one wife, and I love that so much.
Yes.
Yeah, got it all figured out, and
You're right. One wife, one house, one job for my whole life.
yeah, that's incredible. So,
Well, I had some other part-time jobs
Sure,
in machine
sure.
shops and things like that.
but 30 years, right? About
35 years at the high
35
school.
years as an
And then
educator.
10 more years as a part-time welding teacher at the high school.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you taught generations of students, and for industrial arts.
And I just met Mr.
Oh.
Lawless,
Yeah,
and he, when he introduced himself,
yeah.
he introduced himself, and I was thinking, no, I know I had a Lawless in class, and then he said, yeah, it was me.
Yeah. You'd mentioned you were employed, so you went to ISU, correct? And were employed in Bloomington as a machinist to kind of work your way through college. Came back here and then worked in education for 35 years. So tell us. There's a couple other things you mentioned. Peterson Products. You had a home business for about 25 years here in town. What were you making? Just anything in particular, or just what were they kind of special
Yes,
order
very
things,
particular and very specialized, which is why it didn't fly. No, I have been working from home and making money, not a lot, but since 1969.
Oh, wow.
So, anybody can do it. But my brother and I designed a series of foundry patterns. People aren't going to understand what I'm talking about, but I taught foundry, among other things, at the high school. And Jan and I realized that teachers need projects to use, shop teachers. So we created 10 or more projects that they could buy the patterns and the plans, and we had samples of all that. And I had 4 or 5 distributors, and we sold the heck out of those for 25 years. So we saturated the market.
Yeah.
And until the entire industrial arts program throughout the country collapsed and there was no need for those.
Yeah.
We also sold teaching aids and I made over 10,000 of those in my basement, great big teaching aids of a micrometer so that the whole class could understand what you were doing, because a micrometer is a tiny little instrument, and you can't show that to a whole class.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we sold a lot of those.
That's incredible, and yeah, I mean, you did that from your own home. I mean, for a long time, and so
Yeah.
and still very much involved in education, even with that, and
That was education, right there.
providing
yeah.
aids for other teachers. And
Absolutely.
So after retirement, you retired from teaching after 35 years. Worked at Caterpillar for a year. Now, was that in Peoria or was that?
That was in Pontiac.
Okay, in
at
Pontiac, so
fuel
kinda still
systems,
local,
yeah,
so-
yeah. And I didn't like that much. My dad always said, you boys need an education. And you need to make sure you never go into a factory. Well, I wasn't really sure what he meant.
Yeah,
Well, after a year at Caterpillar,
you found out.
I found out, and he was quite right.
Yeah, and then
So then I went back to the high school. They called me back, and I worked part-time
okay.
for almost 10 years, I think.
Oh wow! So really, I mean, over 40 years for.
And that wasn't,
in school,
I wasn't a substitute. I had
Yeah.
my own classes
Yeah.
because I do not care to substitute.
Yeah.
That's not my thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then you mentioned some hobbies too. Collecting old antique tools. Of course, you have a lot of videos on your channel with the Threshermans, Thresherman, and kind of showing older tractors and things like that. You mentioned your brother making guns, working on tools, showing those different things on your channel, hunting, shooting, all those things.
I love the videos. I've watched a couple where some people had sent you something
Yeah.
in the mail.
Oh,
And I don't even think you knew necessarily what it was going to be. You were kind of just opening it up.
It's like Christmas.
Yeah.
I get packages every week. Sometimes I am expecting them. Other times, what is this? Well, I just finished a video yesterday where sometimes I have collaborations with companies. I really don't want to be commercial, but they sent me a beautiful little steam engine. This will be in a video coming up in March, probably, maybe February. I understand this will be aired in May, but anyway, this is a $300 item.
Oh wow!
And so I put that together and ran it and made 2 or 3 videos of that. So I get a lot of that. I do get gifts, monetary gifts. I get some offers. Like, I don't want to sell tennis shoes. But Converse offered me $2,000 to run ads, but I'm not really going to do that. I thought maybe they just send me a couple pair of tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Not colored ones that look like a DeWalt or a Milwaukee tool. I just want tennis shoes that look like
Normal tennis
shoes.
shoes. Yeah. Yeah. Don't need to attract that much attention to your feet, right?
Yeah. Nobody wants to look at my feet, not even my face, let alone my feet.
Oh boy. So we talked about your love for industrial arts, how and machinery and teaching, and let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit more about your YouTube channel. Then we'll talk a little bit more about Streator, because this is a Streator centric podcast. And then we'll kind of bring it back to that educational part, if that's okay. But so when you started on YouTube, you were teaching before that. It's 2009, 2006 rather. YouTube is pretty much brand new.
Yes.
What did you think, like when you were first starting it out? What did you think this channel would become? What was the goal? What was the mindset behind that?
There was no goal. There was no mindset. We didn't know what was happening. YouTube was brand new.
And nobody knew anything about it.
So we were just playing around, and at that time, the videos had to be real short. I think 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough content to go more than 2.5 minutes anyway, so it didn't matter. But at that time, there was a fair amount of attention to that video, even though people hadn't really discovered YouTube yet. It was brand new. But then I remember distinctly telling my brother that, I think I have enough ideas and content for probably 6, 8, 10 more videos before I give this up. I didn't know that it was an endless thing. You never run out
And
of
over
ideas.
1,500 videos later.
And people send me ideas. Some of them
Yeah.
are pretty bogus, but I get some good ideas from viewers.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so we were talking earlier. It really is a community that you build up around that channel, and
Very much a community.
Yeah, and so you just, how could you possibly have known it was going to grow into what it is today? I mean, it's just there was no context for that.
No.
At the time,
There was not.
what I love, and I'm a subscriber, and so your channel centers on education and teaching people. Teaching proper use, how to use the tools themselves properly, safety, things like that. Really, probably things that you focused on as an educator in the classroom. You're just carrying that into your YouTube channel. That's really what I love about it. And it's both old and new items. It's not just antiques. And so you are still teaching. You said that earlier. You're still teaching
Absolutely.
people. You're still educating.
It's just most of my videos are a lesson, just like
Sure.
they were a lesson at the high school. Although now I have the liberty of making them a little longer. Teenagers had an attention span of 7 minutes. So if you couldn't complete the lesson in 7 minutes and put them to work, you had lost them.
Sure, but that education is still important, and obviously you see the importance of that.
It is so important. I'm talking about shop
Yeah.
and working with your hands, because the shop programs have collapsed throughout the country. So people are not learning this anymore. So it's an opportunity for young people if they are interested. But the average age of my viewers is 74. There aren't many young people
Yeah.
watching it, but many older men are watching it saying, I had shop in class, I've been busy all my life, now I'm getting back to this,
Yeah.
or my uncle left me a machine and I want to learn how to use it. So I got that type of thing going to bring me viewers. But getting back to the 300,000 subscribers, the first 100,000 of those have died of old age already. So
wow.
there's really only maybe 200,000 out there at the most.
Well, but still, you have that presence. I mean, even whatever that number is, we hope it grows and grows and grows. But what would you say to? And I hope young people watch this and hear this. But what would you say to a younger generation about why it's important for them? I mean, yes, vocational education has changed, but why is it important for them to get that education? And especially maybe even tie that into, if you're from a small town, what opportunities does that provide for you if you get that education and if you seek that out?
Well, I like to put it this way. Excuse me. If you take your car to the shop or a dealer and get it fixed, you want the smartest, best educated and best trained person possible to work on that car. When you get a plumber or an electrician in your house, you want somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So these programs have collapsed pretty much. However, training is still available in community colleges to a great extent. But it's important for people to be able to do things for themselves, because a plumber costs $100 an hour. You ought to be able to do those simple jobs yourself, because you can buy the materials and everything you need at a home center, and you can work on your own car, do the simpler things. You can't work under the hood anymore. And also as an avocation, because I see so many people that are saying, I don't know what to do. I get so bored. I'm playing crossword puzzles. I'm playing solid. No. You got the whole world at your fingertips in your basement with some kind of hobby with your hands, and you ought to exploit that and enjoy that, because there's such great pleasure and satisfaction in doing that type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered that question.
No, I think so. It's about self-sufficiency. I think that if I were to kind of summarize, it's self-sufficiency. It's about economics.
Very
because you're I mean, if you, again, just tying this back to growing up here myself, my dad wanted to teach me how to do those things, and so it's like, well, you may not be able to call somebody because you may not have that in your town. You may be the only person that has that skill, and so if we're going to build up communities, a lot of that centers around education and around learning those skills, so that we don't have to rely on somebody outside of our community to come in with that skill, and then charge us a lot of money to do it for travel. And I guess the diversification of your skills, that's only going to help you. You're not going to regret that. You're never going to regret that in your life.
And so many young people are growing up in broken homes, so they do not have a father figure there, maybe that could show them a few things like that and help them along. So, and I like to put it this way too. I got a Toyota car, and you don't need to work on it much. But I finally, when I was 15 years old, and the window motor broke, so I had to change. And that's not easy to do. Well, it's not really hard if you know how.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was to watch a video on how to do it. And so people are doing that, and that's how many people are finding my channel. Like, if only I could do this on my drill press, So they look up a video and they happen to find mine. By the way, out there, if you want to look at any of my videos, you can do a Google search or a YouTube search for Mr. Pete or Tubal Cane or Mr. Pete 222, and thousands of them will come up.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, YouTube, the internet, has kind of revolutionized education and learning
really
how to
has.
do things.
That's a good way to put
so
it.
to pass on that knowledge. And
I would say so. There's not a week that goes by where something comes up at my house or something that needs to be fixed. I'm like, hey, you look at it, and I'm not super handy. I'm not a super handy guy. I know how to play instruments. That's what I do with my hands. But fixing things isn't one of those things that I've grown up doing. But you just Google it.
Yeah.
You just type in something. My dryer had a problem a few years ago. I said, you know what? I'll bet you I can fix that. So you just Google it and you watch a video. You're like, wow, I think I can do that, and I did. So I think you're right in saying that the advent of YouTube, when you start with funny little videos, you don't know what in the world they're going to do, has now turned into just plethora of information that can help you do things on your own and learn new skills.
Yeah. And you're still, even while you're doing that on your own, you're still engaging in community.
Yeah.
I mean, the transfer of information, at its core, I guess you could, if you really wanted to make education sound boring, that's what it is. But
right, transfer of information.
Transfer of information. But it's about community. It's having a voice that you trust, somebody with 45 plus years of education in industrial arts, like you're a trusted voice. And so, that is a trusted voice that people can go to and they can find. And so bringing it back to the kind of the Streator centric, because that's our goal, right? What I see and what we see, and maybe you see this too, in a small town, you used to have all these people with these skills, and we still do. And so, how has that changed? Because you've been in Streator now for, I can't do math, but 50 plus years, right? So, over 50 years. How has that changed as far as in the community? Maybe even speaking to how has that become more digitized, or how have we put more of those things online? What have you seen change in the town itself and in the communities that you've been a part of over the years, as far as those specialties and those skills and things like that?
That's a hard question to answer. Matter of fact, your question was so long.
I'm sorry.
If you could rephrase it to just a single question, I got lost.
Sure.
Question.
Sure.
Remember, I'm 80 years old.
I appreciate that. So really, how has Streator changed as far as skill sets?
Oh, okay. Now I get it. Yeah.
What's different today from 50 years ago as far as?
So, I was teaching machine shop for the first 25 years, but in 1988 at the high school, that's when they started canceling shop classes. So I think machine shop was probably the first one to close for several reasons. First of all, it was a very expensive program to run, incredibly expensive, almost as expensive as sports programs. So anyway, when that was pulled out from under me, they did it for a reason. Part of the reason, besides the expense, is that these little machine shops around town were closing as the owners got older and died and things like that. And there really was no call for that anymore. And then slowly, one at a time, the bigger factories started closing as well. So there wasn't a big job market anymore for machinists, and certainly not for foundry. And I was teaching foundry. Matter of fact, I was teaching how to make buggy whips for many years, as my dad would put it. I didn't.
What's a buggy whip?
Yeah, what's a buggy whip? Well, I don't know, but here's how to make one.
Oh.
So
I love that.
yeah, so that's how things evolved, and then they pulled me out of there, and I was teaching math, like a vocational math, and welding I liked, but I didn't like teaching math or computers, and they were taking old shop classes rooms and selling all the equipment and then turning it into a computer lab, and I didn't like that at all. So I did take an early retirement because of that, and then ended up coming back. I probably retired too early, but I had to get away from teaching math. No offense to you math teachers out there. But I didn't like, I wasn't trained for it either. They just said, do this.
It's a specialized set.
Yes.
Teaching math.
Yeah. You must
I
love
think
math.
it is, yeah.
Yes. So these shops are closing, these factories are closing down. What's the toll that takes on not just the individual but the community? How does that affect a community that you've seen happen here in Streator?
It devastated me. I was brokenhearted.
Yeah.
Absolutely brokenhearted over the whole thing. And how did it affect the community? Well, I thought I explained that in the terms of the closing all of the, not all of them, but many of the shops. And just recently, one of my former students, Mr. Bill Dovin, closed his machine shop over here on Lundy Street. He had a big auction. He was a little too young. I hope I'm not giving any secrets away. He was just a hair too young to retire. But I said, Bill, why are you doing this? This is your life. And he says, I can't run this big shop by myself. And he could not find qualified workers, people that could just turn them loose.
Yeah.
You had to stand over them and show them what to do, and you can't run a business like that. Right. So it's kind of a lost trade, a lost skill, but there are many other people doing this on YouTube. Yeah. I'm not the Lone Ranger anymore.
Yeah. So it's jobs. Again, it goes back to economics. It's community. Building up itself. Having the tools and the resources local. Those are the things that we are starting to miss. And if they're needed, then we have to go somewhere else to find them. And so, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. Sorry if my questions were too long, but so let's go back now to kind of the connections, the opportunities. So talking about YouTube community, small town values. So this question here with connections comes opportunity, but it also comes some risks. You talked earlier about the best parts of YouTube. We were talking about that a little bit earlier, and also some of the risks of YouTube, some of your privacy risks that you take. How do you balance those out? What's the best part of YouTube? You mentioned a meet and greet that you had.
I had a meet and greet about 5 years ago at my house, and I had between 200 and 300 people at my
from all
house.
over, from
I think there were
states. I think you're
15 or 20 states in Canada, and there were a lot of people there. Parking was a big problem. They had to park. Some people had to park at Walmart.
Oh wow!
Or over there at Liberty Village, and it was a big problem. It was a wonderful day. I expected 20 people, not 200 and some. And we had food and everything. It was just one of the highlights of my life, really. And the whole thing is kind of a blur for me because so much happened, and I met so many people. And people expect you to remember their name, say, when the next time you see them.
All 200 of them.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I had trouble at school. The first 5 years of teaching, I required the kids to wear a blue denim apron with strings and all of that stuff, and I had them paint their name right like this, so I could memorize their name. Well, that didn't work because by second semester they were selling their aprons to their friends with the wrong name on them. So.
Best laid plans, right?
Yes. But there are also risks, right? We talked a little bit earlier about privacy, and have even had some stalkers.
I have stalkers
from YouTube, which is a little scary.
I try to keep my location in my house secret. But with the internet, people can find me. I will not answer a phone unless I know who it is.
Yeah.
But I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, I'm on a dead end street, so sometimes I would see a car or a truck go real slow by the house, and then they must turn around, they come back real slow, and then they pull into the driveway, and then they knock it, and I'm very apprehensive at first, but
understandably. Yeah.
but in the end, it usually ends up as a wonderful conversation, and I don't want them to leave.
Yeah.
But it initially is very creepy that somebody found you.
Yeah.
And I do meet people sometimes. Now, I'm not going to meet them so much as at a restaurant, although I have, but more typically in the tool department of a store. Or
You said in Streator, so if you were walking down the street, Main Street in Streator, you would have people just know you as Lyle, right? But they probably don't have as much of a connection to the YouTube part of things. But if you were, you mentioned being out of state one time, or I think, well, I guess that was something else.
Oh,
I guess that was a different thing. That was the Tubal Cain name.
I was at Grizzly Tools. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, and that's in Springfield, Missouri. And it's a tremendously large store that sells woodworking and metalworking tools. And I'm at the counter buying something, and a man is waiting behind me. And when I turn around after the transaction, he said, "Are you Mr. Pete?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Well, I recognized your voice." He couldn't even see my face until I turned around. So then we had a nice conversation. So that went from being kind of creepy to being fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you've lived in smaller towns your whole life. Just knowing the little bit that I do from our conversations back and forth. You have what I would call kind of small town values. And you see the world. Through the lens of your mom who prayed for you growing up and all those things, and of course your faith. And how do you think you can take, or how do you take those values and impact the world with them through YouTube? Do you feel like you're making an impact in people's lives through those values? Do you feel like you're changing the world just one person at a time, or? Yeah,
it would be one person at a time. But you remember this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Sure.
Well, in some ways, it does shine, because I do get comments from people saying that I can tell you're a born-again Christian, I am one too, and things like that, and then it kind of goes on and on. And so that pleases me greatly, because, I do get a lot of comments on the videos, typically 300 or 400 per video, and I get a lot of emails. I try to keep that secret too, because I get too many emails and too many questions, and I don't want to brush anyone off, but I just cannot spend that much time answering. And some people are asking technical questions like, how do I fix the transmission in my car? Well, that's a pretty far-fetched question to ask,
That's a great question for a mechanic.
Yeah, so I can't answer things like that, but I do acknowledge that the email came in, but so it's almost a full-time job. I get letters, stacks and stacks, handwritten letters. I received a handwritten with a number 2 Venus pencil last week from a 13-year-old boy in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Huh. And just telling me the impact of, I told you not too many young people watch my channel, but a few do.
Yeah.
But some of these letters, I have to go in the bathroom at home to read them because they make me cry.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
I've had people say that I've changed their life. Well, how? I'm just an old shop teacher. How can I change your life? But they go on and on. Or they're in the hospital and they just had their leg cut off and they've given up and they're watching my videos. And I don't want this to sound like a bragging session, because I'm a modest man. And as one of my supervisors once told me at the high school, you have a lot to be modest about. So I do not have a real good self-image because of some of the things that have happened. And I don't know if you realize this or not, but shop teachers in general are held in very low esteem, even within the educational community. We are at the bottom of the totem pole, right there with the PE teachers. And we're not given any recognition whatsoever that, This is where we send the bad kids and the trouble kids, and we don't want to hear any more from you. And so I'm very apprehensive when I talk to someone that would say, well, what do you do for a living? And my answer is, well, I'm a teacher. And I don't want it to go any farther than that. I'm talking about years ago now, before YouTube. And they'll say, oh, that's wonderful. What do you teach? Oh, no, it came down to this. Well, I'm a shop teacher. And their voice drops. Oh, like that. And then I feel like 2 cents. And I was, oh, why did they ask me that? So
You see that?
It shouldn't be that way.
That's the people that are good with their hands, mechanical things, being able to build things and fix things have always fascinated me.
Yeah.
really,
Always. It's always fascinated me because,
I love hearing that.
well, it's just to be able to have that skill and be able to look at a piece of machinery and just know, oh, well, this goes here, that goes there. You tie these cables together. I've got a buddy that works at Vactor, and he tells me what he does, and he talks about it like, oh, all you do is you're doing this and that and the other. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't say that because I don't want to look dumb. But it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I think it's incredible. So people that have those skills and that ability, one, I find them to be highly intelligent. If you have the skills to work on machinery, it's generally because you're pretty intelligent. And sadly, those people have been told they're not intelligent in their lives.
Well, and I think we've spent so much time focused on non-mechanical things in our world.
Yeah.
We've tried to get so far away from, but you can never really get away from
No.
machines. I mean, even a computer is a machine. Let's be honest; it just works differently. But
Like machines, cables, wires, like all the stuff we have here, like this is all wire that needs to be soldered and connected, and it needs to work properly.
So to have that knowledge and to be able to share that with other people, again, you're building them up. You're giving them a skill that will last them a lifetime. I am very fond of my shop classes that I took in high school.
Really?
Oh, very much so. I went to Woodland, and
you're local.
So my senior year, I took every shop class I could because I had the electives that I could, and I am so thankful because I was able to wire my entire house when we bought a house, and with my dad and father-in-law's help and my brother-in-law's help. I didn't do it by myself, but there's a lot of work. But those skills are invaluable. I couldn't put a price on them. I couldn't possibly. But learning how to weld, I haven't welded in years, but learning those things, learning how to use a torch, learning how to build things and to make things. And we didn't have a foundry at Woodland, but a little bit smaller school too. But
Many people in the comments tell me that they loved their shop teachers and their shop classes, and often they mention their teacher's name from many years ago, and he said, this was the finest man that I ever knew in my life. Not that there aren't great physics teachers and chemistry teachers and so on, but you tend to hear this about people, how they loved their shop teacher. Now, there were many people that had bad shop teachers, as they were bad math teachers or other trades as well. And yes, some of the smartest people I ever knew were filthy, dirty, unshaven. No, unshaven used to be a different thing. A 3-day beard like Festus. Now everybody has a 3-day beard. But my dad had a lot of friends, and they would come over to visit with him and get advice and so on. And there was one man, Leon. He was so filthy. He was a millwright. He would squat in the kitchen and drink coffee with Dad. He wouldn't sit on a chair even because he was so filthy. He was incredibly smart.
yeah.
And I remember at my dad's funeral, I hope I can tell this story without crying. He came in and he was too dirty, he still filthy. He wouldn't even sit in the chairs. He squatted or stooped down next to the coffin and prayed, and he cried. He could not stop crying. So that's I thought was a wonderful legacy for my dad, to
absolutely.
have this dirty, intelligent man sitting by the coffin crying over my dad.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way I feel when I get some of these letters. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. Cut this part out. I'm embarrassed.
No problem. Yeah.
But yes, we want smart people, and they're everywhere in these factories. Vector, these beautiful $400,000 machines didn't get built by idiots or designed by idiots.
No.
Yeah. So this is going to air a few months after we record it, but how can people find you, engage with your channel, your other content, anything else you're really excited, any projects you're excited about coming up? They may have already aired after this airs, but what are some ways that people can get in touch with your YouTube channel? And
All right. Again, just leave a comment.
Sure.
On my channel. I told you how to find that
Yep.
already.
Mr. Pete 222, right? I think
Yeah,
is
Mr.
the
Pete
official.
222
Yeah.
or Tubal Cain, all one word. Hey, we didn't talk about the origin of Tubal
We
Cain.
didn't. Tell us
Do we
really
have time
quick.
to sneak that in?
Sure. Is
Sure,
that,
go
yeah.
for it.
Okay, the
Yeah.
name Tubal Cain came from Genesis 4:22. Tubal Cain was the first artificer of bronze. Now, some of the other translations might say iron and things like ironmonger. And by the way, Tubal Cain is in the Ark over in is it Indiana?
Or Kentucky.
Kentucky
In
and Ohio,
Kentucky,
I think is where they're at. Yeah.
And I took a picture of Tubal Cain there hammering something out,
That's
which
amazing.
was pretty awesome. So, by the way, there was no iron yet. That was
Yeah.
before the Iron Age.
Yeah.
So bronze is
Age.
more correct. So that's how I took the name. But one other thing that I want to mention is that we don't know anything about YouTube, but the whole thing could collapse like a house of cards and everything is gone. Who knows? But if I have a legacy, which I don't think I do offer for sale, but I'm not plugging this in any way here, but I do
Yes.
have video courses,
Yes.
6 or more of those, and usually they're 30 or 40 chapters. For instance, how to run a South Bend lathe, how to run a Bridgeport mill, and so on. And I have sold thousands of
Yeah.
those. It sounds like this guy crazy, but apparently no one else does anything like this, and people don't like to read. You can buy an $80 textbook and
Yeah.
learn how to do that, but I have these courses, so they have been pretty successful, and I plan on making some
Yeah.
more, although it's a heck of a job.
And there's hours of teaching in these courses.
Oh, yeah.
That is not
I
on.
think
That is
there's
not on YouTube.
It's
That is
not on YouTube.
So yeah.
I think there's like 10 to 13 hours each. By the way, I got to plug my wife, my beautiful wife, Jeanette, because she does all the paperwork and helps me with the correspondence and all that stuff that I would not do and cannot do and do not want to do. So
Well, we'll say thanks to Jeanette for getting us connected with Lyle too. So
Oh, yeah. Right.
appreciate the connection. Yeah. So.
yeah.
So, Mr. Pete 222 on YouTube. Of course, in the comment sections, like, share his video. I mean, that just helps your channel grow. And of course, you've got correspondence on there you can do. People can find out where to send you a letter. I think you've got like a PayPal support link on there too. Of course, I don't know if you're comfortable with plugging that, but I will to support your work. And so. Because I think it's great, and I do think you have a legacy. I think you have
Thank
a
you.
fantastic legacy that you
I
have
do
years
not-
of education and
I do not beg for money. You notice that
Sure.
many YouTubers are absolutely begging. Send me money, be a Patreon member, and then you will get exclusive content that I do not give to the peons. And I will not do that. I think it cheapens you. However, many people are expecting to work full time on YouTube, and that's their job.
Yeah.
It's part time for me, and I do not beg for cash. However, I do receive some real nice gifts and gift cards and things like that, and I appreciate that greatly. It helps me. There are a lot of expenses, as you can imagine. I don't have great equipment like what you got here, but I'm on a budget.
yeah, well, travel and all those things. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that go.
Oh,
into
another
it, so.
thing I wanted to say. I do sometimes do video tours of factories and different
Yes.
places like that.
Yeah.
And just recently I was over in Princeton, Illinois, and a truck driver destroyed the little red bridge over there, the covered bridge. So I did a video on that. just for the fun of it, and quite a few people watched that and were shocked at the damage.
Yeah, that was big news. That was big news around here when
Big
it happened.
news, and I
So,
want it to be even bigger.
yeah.
So I do a few things like that, trying to increase my viewership, but it hasn't helped.
Well, we hope it increases. I wish you the very best. Thank you so much for joining us. Anything else you want to add before we sign off, or anything you want to say to our audience about Streator or anything like that? Anything that we can share on your behalf or anything like that?
We didn't talk enough about Streator, but I think that Streator often gets a bad rap. It's a wonderful, wonderful community with 10,000 great people. I don't know them all, but I don't know how it got that reputation, but I've lived in LaSalle, Peru, and it's really not much different than LaSalle, Peru. And I'm hurt when people talk that way, especially when Streator writes themselves say something that is not beneficial to the community, because we have great churches and great people, wonderful schools. I worked with a staff at the high school of fabulous teachers over the years, not just the shop teachers, but the entire faculty itself was wonderful. I'm still in contact with many of them that are still alive.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. I've lost a lot of dear friends.
Yeah.
When you're 80 years old, many of your friends are in heaven already.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. And
I feel like
thank you, Tony.
we've made a friend today and a fellow Streatorite. And so Mr. Pete, thank you, Lyle, for so much for being here with us, for sharing your experience and legacy, and so much for what you do on YouTube and just for being a part of our community as well. So we'll see you next time on the We Are Here podcast.
And thank you out there, and be sure and watch my YouTube channel, and I'll see you in my next video.